Hello, my name's Cassie. I'm here to present my paper, The Chain Hat, Subverting Prince, Fashioning the Symbol. Thank you, D'Angela, for inviting me to come along and chat Prince and fashion. And thank you to your team for putting on this incredible event celebrating 30 years of the Love Symbol album. So, throughout his career, Prince wore many hats. Bowlers, fedoras, panamas, homburgs, beanie hats, top hats, to name but a few. But no chapeau remains as notorious as the chain hat. This paper will explore the hat's origins, materiality, and will discuss the hat's role in the refashioning of the symbol in the early to mid 1990s. Focusing on the My Name is Prince music video, Herbert's photo shoot, and live performances during Act 1 and Act 2 tours, the chain hat will be celebrated as a sartorial tool of masquerade, revolution, and iconography in our popular culture. So first worn in the Violet the Organ Grinder music video, the chain hat was an indicator of Prince's lifelong interest in BDSM imagery, dressing him as the ornate, pleasure-seeking other. A mystery figure opens their ornately gilded arms and introduces himself as the Violet, a chain-clad, masked figure with the intention of tending to your sexual pleasure 24/7. The Violet positions Prince as both dominant and submissive, with an incessant need to grind all the livelong day. The figure's face is completely disguised under a waterfall of chunky metal chains attached to a black conductor cap, which is branded with a metal love symbol album, our first introduction to the chain hat. Of course, kink is prevalent throughout Prince's career, with many lyrics focusing on pain, pleasure, dominance, submission, sex positive, bondage, roleplay, to name but a few. These desires were often acted out on stage, including simulated sex acts, bondage sessions, and whipping with fetish accessories, including ties, masks, chains, whips, and collars worn throughout performances in the 1980s and 1990s. These acts were typically fronted by the female performers in Prince's bands, including Maite Garcia, Jill Jones, Lisa Coleman, Weldy Melvoin, and Cat Glover, with Prince most often adopting the role of submissive male. Now, whilst Violet sings about masturbating with their lover's stockings and brassieres, the song remains elusive to the sexual orientation of Violet. More so, it is implied that the sexual orientation is not important. The character of Violet was created to provide pure sexual gratification, irregardless of time, space, or gender. And in this setting, the chain hat acts as a transgressive sartorial tool of masquerade, allowing Violet to conceal their identity and adopt the role of other. A year later, Prince explodes on screen, donning the chain hat once more, this time posing as the gilded renegade leader of the My Name is Prince music video. Filming took place in downtown Minneapolis in Paisley Park Studios and features a flustered Kirstie Alley's reporter Vanessa Bartholomew and Lauren Green as studio anchor. Bartholomew reports live during a citywide riot following a staged Prince and the MPG doppelganger concert. Yes, it's incredibly confusing, but that's the Love Symbol album. The music video features Prince leaping off the side of a building, dancing on police cars, and smashing his guitar, all within the afterglow of a city burning. Speaking to the golden age of music video, co-director Kevin Kerslake discussed his experience of shooting music videos prior. Quote, "At this point in time, there was a lot of excess in the music video world. And me, coming from the punk rock side of thing, where there wasn't any excess at all, and it was very guerrilla with every dollar showing up on screen." End quote. This raw energy translated onto screen, with Prince performing with a distinct combative energy, reminiscent of earlier performances. And now it is important to note that the video was filmed in August 1992, just a few short months after the LA riots, which occurred following the unjust acquittal of Los Angeles Police Department officers who used excessive force during the arrest of Rodney King, a young black man. The brutal assault was caught on videotape and subsequently broadcast across America and the world, becoming one of the first examples of police brutality to go viral. Rita Flesky argues that symbolic political practices, quote, rather than simply expressing an already constituted sphere of real politics, grounded in the in the economy or the state, may themselves operate as instruments of transformation, ways of reconstituting the social and political world, end quote. Reflecting on this, the chain hat within this setting can be viewed as a social political tool of transformation. Dress, as a bodily practice, is firmly placed within our society and culture, and can and is often instrumentative in the communication of social change. Prince utilised this power of dress, along with performance and cinematography, to deliver his distinct message of reassertion of power. Total facial disrecognition is created through the styling of the chain hat, which is worn alongside a black veil which is affixed to the base of the hat. This disguises Prince's signature hair, along with a low shade cast brim and cascade of chains, his distinctive face concealed completely. Worn alongside the chain hat, Prince is dressed head to toe in black and gold accents, including a branded love symbol, leather gloves, and fitted funnel vest. Affixed to his chest, Prince wears an embroidered, bespoke gold NPG branded Minneapolis Police Department badge, visually reasserting power within his city. This badge was additionally used in promotional t-shirts in 1992. Now, in the recreation of the police badge, Prince was once again commenting on the ongoing social injustices felt, unfortunately, still to this day. Rodney King's assault, particularly close to him as a young black man. Never one to miss a merchandise opportunity, the chain hat was also available to purchase for fans within the pages of the NPG. In recent years, the Prince estate released exclusive limited edition replicas of this hat to be sold at Paisley Park and retailing for $250. By weaponizing his dress on this occasion, Prince subverted the authoritarian insignia and to reclaim that power in his city. Prince communicated his own social political beliefs of liberation for all towards his fans directly and allowed them to also express their similar feelings by wearing these garments. The top could also be seen as a stylized bulletproof vest with its close-fitting cut and visible zips, which become a key feature in many of Stacia Lang's designs at the time. Clutching a bespoke gold gun microphone, Prince arms himself with his music and performs on the streets of Minneapolis with the NPG as the city riots. The stylized vest can also be viewed as a variation of the popular corseted bodices at the time, like this 1990 Vivienne Westwood example. While strikingly more machismo in presentation on first look, Prince again subverts traditional hegemonic masculinities through a tailored torso, heels, and cosmetics. Crowds around Prince are dressed casually in fashionable grunge streetwear and clubwear. The NPG are dressed in black, gold with red accents, but present a more familiar representation of black masculinity at that time. They perform in oversized hoodies, sports shorts, leather jackets, baseball caps, and trainers. Around this time, Prince struck up an unlikely partnership with Joe Bloggs, a Manchester-based fashion brand synonymous with the Manchester look of the 1980s, dressing bands such as the Happy Mondays and Inspiral Carpets. An exclusive, unique t-shirt was piloted as a release for the Sexy MF single and was followed by a subsequent NPG streetwear collection with a price point of £25 to £30 per item, which is about £50 to £60 in today's money. Some of which these garments, some of which can be seen worn by the NPG in the My Name is Prince music video. A women's wear line, Diamonds and Pearls, features leggings, bodies, and chaps made in leather, lycra, satin finish PVC, and plastic coated mesh. Garments are body hugging, incredibly sexy, and perfect for nightlife. And as the kind of promotion says, wait till you see the little rubber playsuit number. The menswear range also featured rubber and PVC with a range of waistcoats, t-shirts, shorts, and jackets. And interestingly, it was described as fitted rather than figure hugging. This distinction of tailoring is reflected in the silhouette and line of Prince compared to the NPG. Joe Bloggs himself described the collection as, quote, daring, opulent, and only slightly deviant. And if it's good enough for Prince, ... end quote. Traditional functional fetish fabrics such as rubber, latex, mesh PVC were now no longer refined to the bedroom, as we'll see in the next slide. Looping back, fetish wear was hugely fashionable in the early 1990s, with designers such as Chanel, Claude Monet, Gianni Versace, and Terry Mugler dipping into the submersive undercurrents of kink to influence the runways. Versace, a longtime collaborator and friend of Prince, debuted their divisive Miss S&M collection in March 1992, with models walking the catwalk dressed in bondage, harnesses, and spike heels in a black and gold colour palette. Chanel's fall 1991 hip-hop collection saw the models walk in an abundance of chains, oversized baseball caps, and mesh shorts. Prior to this, fetish wear had been adopted by the counterculture from the 1970s onwards, by punks, ravers, goths, etc. And it was a frequent place with many performers, people like Grace Jones, Mötley Crüe, New York Dolls. It was quite a common thing to wear on stage. Now, fast forward to 1992, and as Gianni Versace exclaimed, quote, "We showed a similar collection in Dallas 15 years ago, and they turned the lights up on us. They were disgusted. They said these clothes belonged only in a leather bar. And now, last night, there were 200 socialites in bondage," end quote. Whilst we can assume Prince's own sexual preferences existed within the kink world, it is also highly likely that these garments are in part inspired by the highly fashionable contemporary renderings of fetish wear of that time. Whilst outwardly Prince appears more traditionally masculine in his clothing, with the inclusion, Prince submerged this machismo as an assertive figure dressed in heels. And by this point, Prince's signature button trousers had increased in length, with the heavily darted waistband now worn high, fastened on his body, resting just under his nipples. This acted as an integrated corset within his trousers, emphasizing his tiny cinched waist and exaggerated buttocks. His signature buttons had now shrunk, with dainty contrast buttons affixed to the side seam from calf to mid-thigh. Jackets were also cut higher, with many styled reminiscent of shrunken matador jackets in a hue of striped contrast colours. Fashion journalist Prudence Glynn wrote in great detail about the linked eroticism and performance of the matador and American football players' male silhouettes, likening it to the inverted male phallus. She explained, quote, "The matador is equally padded to enhance his manly form, but because his game is one of real life and death, he lards himself with sequins and as much glamour as a gladiator's armour," end quote. Much like the matador, Prince's body was padded with ever-expanded shoulder pads and shaped with curved darts and corseted waists. Outwardly, Prince's clothing appeared increasingly ostentatious, but was the sartorial tactic to prepare him for his own stage battle. Overall, Prince visually became leaner and increasingly experimental, with a greater defined and sculpted silhouette that looked more akin to the exaggerated curves and swerves of the cursive Terry Mugler women's wear line. With the addition of the heavier use of cosmetics, including whip-sharp cat eyeliner and the sculpted typhoon hairstyle, Prince's appearance was strikingly different from his contemporaries. Pressure from his record company to continue to produce mainstream pop records after the success of Diamonds and Pearls could have convinced Prince to dial back his exuberant personal style, but he only seemed to turn the volume up. Naturally, the chain hat was all Prince's idea, with the musician requesting his team to affix gold-toned chains to his pre-existing policeman cap. Plus, perhaps this was the same hat worn during the Sign of the Times tour with the insignia removed. And on closer inspection of one example of the chain hat worn during the Act 1 tour in 1993, it would appear that the hat is a modified Bell Crown Fire Department with a gold love symbol mounted to the centre. And this is just kind of indicative of the kind of inventiveness and ingenuity of the Paisley Park wardrobe team. The chains were attached to the brim of the hat using black thread, and the number of chains differed depending on the variation of the hat, with the My Name is Prince worn design with 13 chains. Lightweight aluminium chains allowed ease of movement during energetic dance moves without any discomfort for Prince, which is incredibly important. Performing with the chain hat became an integral part of Prince's live performance during Act 1 and Act 2 tours. Opening the show, a chain-clad figure masquerading in Prince would enter on stage and perform My Name is Prince. And by the end of the song, it is revealed that the masked singer was actually Maite. This wasn't anything new. Prince was known to share wardrobes with bandmates and lovers alike. And this duplicitous switcheroo had been used by Prince prior, with Cat Glover used as a suggestive stand-in for the musician in the Sign of the Times cover art. And by adopting the chain hat, it allowed others to adopt the role of emerging symbol, including his fans. Now, the Batman issue, number 457, explains, quote, "A masked person is not simply a man or woman whose real identity is hidden, but he is an enigmatic entity standing outside the sphere of ordinary conduct, enjoying a freedom of movement and conduct denied to ordinary men," end quote. But to me, this hits the nail on the head when we discuss Prince's duality, particularly his sartorial deviance and play throughout his career. The Love Symbol album multimedia output included the 3 chains of gold film and comic book, which relied heavily on costume, masquerade, and performance to tell an at times very confusing love story between Princess Maite and Prince. And just like the Riddler's customized cane or Catwoman's vinyl catsuit, the symbol needed sartorial guises to create a strong visual look. The chain hat was, of course, part of this. The chain hat in itself is a hybrid object, both a hat and a mask. Masks can enable paradox, as exampled in the various presentations of the chain hat during the Diamonds and Pearls and Love Symbol releases. They are designed to act as a shield as well as total transfiguration, as seen in Violet. And within the superhero world, masks are vehicles for alter ego's mischief, both criminality and crime fighting. Set within Prince's own transmedia universe, a hybrid chain has now stood the test of time due to the object's uniqueness. The chain-clad figure is of the musician's own agency. I'm going to flip over to the Herb Ritts photo shoots now. So the chain hat, that was extremely crucial within Prince's image making. The musician chose to wear the hat during a photo shoot with legendary photographer Herb Ritts. Ritts recalled working with Prince, quote, "There was no question who was in charge. There wasn't a lot of third-party activity. It was mostly just me and him. He was incredibly kind, articulate, and soft-spoken, but completely engaged and totally charming, and he had no ego," end quote. Prince also shot Prince's silhouette in customized mannequin form, as if he was photographing a graphic building with high contrast and crisp definition, forever immortalizing that Prince silhouette that at this time in the early 1990s is kind of really finessed. Ritts also encapsulated the sensuality omnipresent within Prince's music. Ritts reflected on his positionality of the erotic within his work, quote, "As I see it, my style has something more sensual. My photographs are erotic in a more approachable way, rather than hard-edged. In some ways, my pictures are erotic, but I would say for me, there's more of a sensuality coexisting with eroticism," end quote. Echoing this, Prince discusses the sexual nature of some of his music to MTV in 1999, quote, "Yeah, sexuality is not bad. Talking about sexuality is very spiritual in nature, and that's a God-given gift too," end quote. Later in life, Prince revisits this subject during an interview on the early show in 2004, quote, "One thing I always tried to keep was the sensuality in my music," end quote. To me, these photo shoots, these images in particular, is what allows Prince to dance between gender boundaries with apparent ease. There is an undercurrent of eroticism with Prince exuding the sensuality and familiarity with his own sexuality embodied with abandonment. Looking back on the chain hat image, Ritts recalled, quote, "When I photographed Prince, I wanted him to move and show off a side of him that I really enjoy, and he wouldn't. He has a certain way he feels he should look in photographs. The mystery works. He does hide the power of his eyes sometimes. I think he likes his power to come out on stage. He doesn't want the camera to capture him. This photograph is like a curtain before the performance, end quote. For that moment, Prince is captured still, shot and static. The chains appear rigid and stark in comparison to the frenetic energy the chains exude whilst worn on stage. Whilst Prince refused a certain aspect of himself to be photographed, by choosing to wear the chain hat, Prince desired all of his complexities, the deviant and the devout, to be captured in this enduring career retrospective shoot. Not just an outrageous stage prop, the chain hat reasserted Prince's place within the music industry as a creative maverick. Bound in chains, the hat became a literal representation of the constraints felt as a Black musician at the time, and asserted control over his self, image, and art. Thank you very much for your time. Quickly, whilst I still have your attention, I would like to share my call for participants as part of my PhD project, Fashioning the Love Symbol, the Design, Fan Cultures and Legacy of Prince Rogers Nelson. I'm looking to speak to Prince fans from all over the world and discuss the relationship with Prince fandom and fashion. I'm always happy to chat, so please drop me a message with more details if you're interested. I'll also be at my booth after today's session. Thank you very much for your time.